Hi and welcome to this course, Build a Complete Movies API using FastAPI. FastAPI is one of the best frameworks that would allow you to build complete APIs. And in this course, I'm going to teach you how to create a complete API using FastAPI. I'm going to start by introducing you to the framework, how it works, how to install it, how to start creating simple endpoints, and then I'm going to move on with you to start building the complete movies API. You will be taught the essentials skills required to build a complete API. And by the end of this course, you will be able to start creating your own APIs, having created that complete API throughout this course. So in this course, you will be taken step by step. I'm going to start from the very basics all the way to building the complete API. And I'm going to be introducing you to the most important features that this awesome framework provides. FastAPI is considered one of the best frameworks when it comes to building APIs. And by using FastAPI, you will find that the process of building an API is super simple and actually fun, not just simple. Before deciding whether you should take this course or not, you need to know who is this course for, so that you can make a reasonable decision whether you should take this course or not. So I'm going to provide you with the groups that should take this course. The first group is those who want to learn how to build APIs using Python. If you want to specialize in Python, specifically in APIs, then this course is definitely for you, because FastAPI is probably the best framework, is the best Python framework to build APIs. The second group is those who want to specialize in backend development. If you love backend development, then this course is for you. And by taking this course, you will specialize not just in backend development, but also in Python backend development. So if you fall into one of these groups, then I'd highly recommend taking this course. What is expected after taking this course? Well, after taking this course, first, you will have robust understanding of FastAPI, the framework, and how it works, and how to work with it and how to use it effectively. Second, you will have created a complete API using FastAPI framework. Third, you will have learned the skills required to build a complete API and APIs using FastAPI. And most importantly, you will be able to apply for Python backend positions confidently with the project that you have created. If you have any question or questions about this course, feel free to contact me on my website, commoncode.com. First of all, in this course, I'm going to be using Sublime Text. You can choose whatever IDE or text editor you want, but I prefer using Sublime Text because it's very simple to use, and also it doesn't take a lot of the PC or Mac resources, and it's very light, therefore I'm going to be using it. And I'd recommend using it. If you want to choose another IDE or text editor, it's up to you. And if you want to download and install Sublime Text, you can go to sublimetext.com, and you can immediately download and install Sublime Text for Mac or for your Windows if you are using Windows. Very simple. All you need to do is that you need to click on download, and then you can install it like any other software on your Mac or PC. In order to download and install Python, you need to head on over to python.org and then hover over downloads, and then click on your operating system. If you are using Windows, you need to download the one here for Windows, or if you are using Mac, you need to download the one for Mac. But for Mac users, before you download Python, you need to check if Python is already installed on your Mac or not. To do that, you can head on over to your terminal, open your terminal, and then in the terminal, just type Python 3 and then minus version, and then hit enter, and it's gonna tell you if Python is installed or not. If Python is installed, it's gonna print out the version. So as you can see here, the version is 3.7.1, and I'm gonna be using Python 3. If you type Python, only Python without 3 and then hyphen version, it's going to print out the version of Python 2, which version of Python 2 that is installed on my Mac. But I'm gonna be using Python 3, therefore you need to type Python 3 hyphen version and check if it's installed. If it's installed, then you don't need to do anything else. But if Python is not installed on your Mac, you need to head on over to python.org and then click on here on Mac OS X to check out all of the versions that are available. And you can download the latest version, which is 3.8.5 or 3.7 or even 3.6. It doesn't matter as long as it's 3.6 and above. And as you have seen, I'm using 3.7. The process of installing and downloading Python is the same for all of these versions. So you can select whichever you want. I already have downloaded 3.7.1 and installed it. So I'm gonna click on it just to show you that how we can install it on Mac. So all you need to do is that you need to select the file. You have here the installer. As you can see, the installer. You can download the installer. I'm going to click on it, and it's going to take some time to download this package. And once it's installed, all you need to do is that you need to open it, and then you need to just click on a few nexts and accept the license. Just click on continue, and then readme, just make sure that you agree on the license here. Click on continue and then agree, and then just click on install, and it's gonna start installing. Click here on install. And once it's done, all you need to do is that you need to click on close, and you are good to go. And to make sure that Python has been installed, first of all, you can click on here go, and then applications, and then you will find Python among your applications. As you can see here, it says Python 3.7, and you can check the if Python is installed or not by also heading on over to the terminal, and you need to close the terminal and then open a new terminal. You need to open a new terminal to check if it's installed or not. And then in a new terminal, you need to type again Python 3 and then hyphen version, and then hit enter. And as you can see, it's going to tell you that it's going to print out Python 3.7.1. And also make sure that pip is installed. Type pip and then hyphen version and hit enter, and it should here print out the version and where it's installed. Also pip 3 and then hyphen version, and then hit enter, and as you can see here, pip 20.2, and it's installed. So this is how you can install Python 3 on your Mac. So in order to download Python for Windows, you need to head on over to python.org, and then if you scroll, you'll find under download the latest version, and click on it. And then if you scroll, you'll find many files. You need to download the file that is suitable for your operating system. If you are using Windows 32, then you need to install Windows 86 executable installer, and if your Windows is 64, you need to install Windows 64 executable installer, and it's gonna take some time. And once it's done, I'm gonna open it, and then I'm gonna click on run, and then I'm gonna here check the add Python 3.7 to path. This is very, very important. You need to check this. You need to check add Python to path, and then click on customize installation. Click on it, and then make sure that you check all of these. We need pip, we need the documentation, we need the ID, and then make sure that the environment variables is checked. And then I'm gonna change the location where I'm gonna be installing Python to just Python inside my C. So I'm gonna head on over to my PC, and then I'm gonna open the C, and then I'm gonna create a new folder in the C called Python. New, and then folder, and then I'm gonna name it Python with capital P. And then once it's created inside the C, we need to just make sure that it's inside the C Python, and then backslash Python 37, and then click on install, and it's gonna start installing after you click on yes. It's gonna take some time, be patient. And then once it's done, just click on close. It's gonna say setup was successful. And then if you click on Windows sign on the lower left side, and then click on all apps, you will find that a new app, which is just Python. You'll find that Python has been installed here. It says Python 3.7 module, and also the IDLE, and also the Python manuals. And also, if you click on command prompt, this is very important. You need to open your command prompt and then type Python. This is very, very important. Type Python. And then if you hit enter, it's gonna print out this message. If this message is printed out, it means that Python has been successfully installed. Otherwise, then it means there is a problem. But Python is very easy to install. You will probably get this message, which means that Python has been successfully installed on your Windows.
Welcome back. Now what we need to do is that we need to install the FastAPI framework. And to do this, you need to head on over to fastapi.tyanglo or angolo.com, and then click here on installation. And then you need to install two things. The first thing is that we need to install the framework itself, which is the FastAPI. The second thing that we need to install is the ASGI server. So to install the framework, first we need to open the terminal. If you are using Mac like me, you need to open the terminal. You need to search here for the terminal. Here type terminal, and you need to open the terminal. If you are a Windows user, then you need to search for what's called the CMD, which is the command. It's also known as the command prompt. Command prompt. So you need to search for CMD in Windows. And then once you have opened this, you need to type the following. You need to type pip install FastAPI. So you need to here say pip install FastAPI. However, since I'm using Python 3, I'm gonna say here pip 3. So you need to say pip 3 if you are using Python 3. And if it doesn't work for you, you need to say just pip install FastAPI. So try this and try this. Try both. If one of them doesn't work, you need to try the other. but I'm using pip 3, I'm using Python 3, therefore I'm gonna say here pip 3 install FastAPI, and then hit enter, and this is gonna start installing Python. This is gonna start installing pip. This is gonna start installing FastAPI in Python 3. The second thing that we need to install is the server, the ASGI server. We need to use the API ASGI server. Therefore, we need to use the Uvicorn. So in order to use the Uvicorn, we need to copy this command, and then we need to say here, we need to paste it here, and then since again I'm using since I'm using Python 3, I'm gonna say pip 3 install Uvicorn standard, and then hit enter, and this is gonna start installing the Uvicorn. And as you can see here, it says successfully installed Uvicorn and the version. And again, if this doesn't work for you, you need to say pip without 3. So you need to try both in order for this to work. And if it has been installed successfully, it's great, and you can follow along and continue with me. Otherwise, you need to try again and try pip or pip 3. Welcome back. Now what we need to do is that we need to create a project folder. And in order to create the project folder, I'd recommend creating it in a location where it's easy for you to find. So I'm gonna create it on my desktop. So on my desktop here, I'm gonna here create a new folder. I'm gonna say new file, new folder, and then I'm gonna say project. And then we need to open this in a text editor. I'm using Sublime Text, so I'm just going to drag this folder and drop it on on Sublime Text, and it will be opened in Sublime Text. The next step is that we need to create our first file. So here I'm going to create a new file. I'm going to click right click, and then I'm going to say new file, and then I'm going to click on control and save, and then I'm going to save this file as main.py, and then click on save, and now we have a file called main.py inside the project. Now we need to start typing the first code. So first of all, the first thing that we need to type is that we need to import the FastAPI. So here at the top, I'm going to say import, I'm going to say from FastAPI import FastAPI, and then what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna say app is equal to FastAPI, and then this is the first thing that we need to do is that we need to create an object of this FastAPI and store it in a variable called app. And then we need to create our first URL. So to create the first URL, we need to say at app.get, and then we need to specify the URL. So the main URL should point to / nothing. We add just / and this is going to point to the main URL without any parameters, just /. Second, we need to specify the function that is, or create the function that is going to be executed upon going to this URL. So I'm going to say async, as you can see, I'm going to be using the async syntax, async keyword, and then I'm going to say async and then def, and then the name of the function. So I'm going to say root, and then inside that function we can return a JSON or an object, or it's called in Python, it's also known as dictionary. You can name it object, dictionary, it doesn't matter, but it has the same syntax as any programming language. So it's double or curly brackets, just curly brackets, and then inside we pass key and value pairs. So here I'm gonna say message, and then I'm gonna say welcome. That's it. And now we need to save all, and now we need to run this in the browser. So to run this, what I'm gonna do is that we need to type the following we need to type the following command to run this file. First, we need to head on over or change directory to this project, because here I'm pointing to the desktop. So we need to say cd, and then I need to say cd to project underscore underscore, because my project folder is called project underscore underscore. If your project is called, say, I don't know, maybe it's just project, or maybe it's my project, you need to say my project. Of course, you need first to say cd and then desktop, because it's on my desktop. But since I am already on my desktop, here it says cd no such file or directory, because I'm already in my desktop. So the first thing is that you need to say cd desktop, and then you need to say cd and then type the name of the folder. So my folder is project underscore underscore. Then you need to type the following command. You need to say uvicorn, and then main, and then colon app, and then hyphen reload, and then hit enter. And if you hit enter, as you can see, this is gonna start this server 127.0.0.18000. You need to copy this URL, and then you need to head on over to the browser. So I'm using Google Chrome. I'm gonna here paste this URL and then hit enter. And as you can see, what I'm gonna get is that I'm gonna get this key value pair, which is message welcome. So this is the basic code that we need and that we learned now, which is the URL. You need to specify the URL as /, and the function that will be executed upon going to this URL, which is this function, which is this very simple function that is going to return this message welcome. And now if you go to /, you are going to get this message welcome. Welcome back. Now what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna show you something amazing that the FastAPI provides, which is the documentation, and also the way of testing, how you can test your API project easily. So instead of having to install a separate client or program to test and try to test your API, the FastAPI provides you with a link here. If you here run your server as I have shown you, like this, by using the uvicorn command, which is this command. Again, it's, let me type it one more time. If you run your uvicorn or uvicorn, also known as uvicorn, and then main :app, and then reload, you will be able to run your server. However, if you add to your URL, if you add docs and hit enter, this is gonna take you to the pre-installed API documentation of the not a documentation. It's actually a testing a web application that the FastAPI provides. So here, if you open it, you'll find that the root here, it says that your application returns a string, and that string is application JSON, and the response status is 200, which is successful response. It's gonna allow you to test your application easily. You don't have to install something. You don't have to install additional application or client application to test your API, which is amazing. Another thing that I want you to know is the documentation itself. You can add here, instead of docs, you can add redoc, and then hit enter, and this is gonna take you to the also another documentation of the FastAPI. You can search for anything you want if you want to search, and also it's going to show you the URLs that you have in your project and how you can test them, and the response, if the response is successful or not. All of these things can be done using the FastAPI without the need of installing extra documentation or extra application. So what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna be using the doc. I think the doc is amazing. The docs is amazing. If you go to the docs, you will always be able to test your application. So I'm gonna be using this instead of installing anything additional. Welcome back. Now what we need to do is that we need to start working on the project. So this code that I have typed is just the basic block, and it's just a way to show you how you can start by creating the first root and the first function. But now let's start creating the project. So the project is going to get and insert and update and delete movies from the database. So it's a typical API that will allow you or users or people who are going to use your application, typically uh, big corporations. These corporations and these websites need a way to get data, and they can use your API to get movies, to update movies, to delete movies, to insert movies. So this project will allow them to do all of this. So the first thing that we need to do is that we need to create a route that is going to return all movies. We need to return everything. So to return everything, we need to create a new route, and we already know how to create a route. Let's now create a new route. So I'm gonna create a new route. I'm gonna say here app, and then I'm gonna say dot get, and then /, and notice here that I'm using get. Whenever we are returning everything, we use the get request. This is a rule of thumb. Whenever you need to know that whenever you are returning everything, you need to use the get request, get. And then you can here specify the type of the URL that you want to use. You can use /, you can use anything you want. Preferably, you would need to use the name of the thing or things that you are returning. So in my case, I'm returning movies. Therefore, I'm going to say movies. And then the function below, we need to type or create the function that would return movies. Therefore, I'm going to say here def, and I'm not going to be using the async because there is no need to do this to do so with this function. This function is not going to be using the async technique. Even this function hasn't used the async technique. Here I have just shown you that you can do this with the FastAPI, but here we don't need to use it. Now we need to create the function. So the function that would return all of the movies can be named anything. Of course, you need to be consistent, and you need to give it a meaningful name. So I'm gonna say here get underscore movies. Get movies. It's just gonna return everything. And then I'm gonna here say return, and let's say movies. And we don't have this movie, so let's create a variable called movies here. Movies is equal to movies, and let's here say, for example, title and title. Let's say Batman, and let's say also year. So this movies array will return only one single movie. Let me save. Let's now test. Let me here refresh. And if I refresh, as you can see now here, this docs that's provided by the FastAPI will list out all of the URLs that you have. So we have two URLs. We have the main URL, and we have this URL which would return this get all movies. So this is going to return all of the movies. Let's check this out. Let me open it. And if you open it, as you can see, it says here, successful response, application JSON, string schema. So it's the response is successful. And in order to check the data that has been returned, which is in our case it's a movies array here with objects or dictionary, you need to click try it out. If you click on try it out and then execute, this is going to return the data. Here, as you can see, it says response body. The response body is an array of objects, and in our case we only have one object, which is this object, which returns title and year. And the response header is content length 32, content type application JSON, and the date. Everything has been returned. So this is how you can implement your first URL, which is returning movies. Here, in our case, we are returning movies. You can add, of course, another object to show you. Let me show you. For example, here I'm going to say title, and then I'm going to say Joker, and then let's say year 2022, for example. Let me here refresh and execute. So if you execute, as you can see now, you are going to get two objects. Here, this is the first object and this is the second object. Welcome back. Now what we need to do is that we need to get a movie by ID. Here we have get all movies. So here we will get all movies regardless of the title or the year. We are just gonna get all the movies that we have. However, this is not always useful. In many cases, we need to return a specific piece of data, whether it be movies or whether it be something else. But in our case, we are returning movies. Therefore, we need to return a movie by ID. So there must be a URL in your API that would return a movie by ID, and that can be done by creating a new URL. So we need to create a new URL. So I'm gonna say here at app.get, and then here I'm gonna say movie. And I want you to notice the difference here. Here I'm saying movies. Here I'm saying movie, singular. Here plural, here singular. The reason why I'm doing this is because, again, we want to be consistent. Whenever you are building and working on an API, it's super important and crucial to be consistent and be meaningful with your API endpoints. Because clients who are going to be using your applications, if they don't get a meaningful endpoints, they are going to be confused. Just put yourself in their shoes and you will be confused if you don't know if your API endpoints don't have meaningful names. So here we need to say movie, and then here I'm using the get request because we are gonna get only a single movie. So I'm gonna say here get single movie. And then we need to create the function that would return that movie. So I'm gonna say here def, and then get movie. Get movie, not movies, movie, singular. And since now we are getting a specific movie, we need to pass the ID of that movie. Because think about it, how can we get a specific movie from a big array or from the database? In order to get a specific piece of data, we need to know its ID. The only thing that is unique about any piece of data in an array or a database is its ID. Therefore, in the endpoint, we need to say / and then curly brackets and then we need to pass the movie underscore ID. We need to know the ID of that movie. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to get that movie. And in the function, in order for the function to talk to the arrays, or to talk to the array, so to speak, it must be given the ID. So we need to say movie underscore ID, which is integer, and then inside that function we can access the movies array. We can say here movies, and then we can get that specific movie. We can get that movie from that array. So in order to get that movie from that array, we need to say here movie ID -1. Why -1? Because any array starts with 0. Any array would start with here the first element has an index of 0. The second element, which is this, has an index of 1. The third element has an index of 2, etc. So in order to return the first movie, we need to get its ID and then we need to decrease it by 1. This is a solution. Another solution that I like to do is that I like to pass an empty object. So the empty object would have nothing, would have just empty title, and empty year. And then this object that has an index of 0 would never be used. I would never use it. So the user, whenever the user passes an ID, I'm just gonna say movie ID without -1. So the first movie in this case, the first movie would have an ID of 1. This way you would end and eliminate the confusion about this. So you wouldn't be confused whenever you are trying to get a specific movie. So the first movie would have an ID of 1, the second movie would have an ID of 2, and everything would be perfect. And I like this technique. This technique is awesome because you don't have to decrease by 1 and do anything. You just need to say here movies, and then movie by ID, and then return. And that's it. Now let me go to the browser and let's refresh. Now if you refresh, you will find that we have a new here URL, which is get. If you click on it here, let's here try this out. I'm gonna click try out, and here it says movie ID. We need to provide the movie ID. Let me say 1. If I say 1 and execute, as you can see, I'm gonna get Batman 2001. So I'm gonna get the first movie, which is this. If I say 2, let's say 2. Let's say here 2. Let me say here 2 and execute. I'm gonna get the second movie. If I say 3 and execute, I'm gonna get here nothing. It says internal server error because we don't have a movie that has that ID. There is no movie that has this ID. So now we know how to get a movie by ID. And again, it's important to implement this technique whenever you are dealing with arrays. In order to eliminate the confusion, you need to pass an empty object at the beginning so that the first element would have one ID of 1. Welcome back. Now what we need to do is that we need to delete a movie from our database, so to speak. Of course, this is not a database, this is an array. So how can we delete a movie? Before I delete a movie, here let me show you that I added here a few movies. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's test here. Let me refresh. Let me show you that if I click on movies, and then if I click on try it out and execute, I'm gonna get all of the movies. So here, as you can see, we have this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have all of the movies here. Now, suppose that we want to delete a specific movie. Deleting a movie is very, very simple and probably the easiest thing to do whenever you are working with APIs. It only requires providing the API with the movie ID. That's it. So it's similar to getting a specific movie, but the difference is that instead of getting that movie, we need to delete it. So to delete a movie, we need to say app and create a new root, and the method used, the HTTP method used is delete. And then since we are deleting a movie, we need again to know the ID of that movie. Therefore, I'm gonna say here movie and then / and then I'm gonna pass the movie ID and then the function. I'm gonna say def delete underscore movie. And again, I want you to pay attention. I want you to pay attention to the structure one more time. We always start with the app and then we specify the method. The method in case of delete, of course, delete. And then we provide the method with the structure of the URL. So again, the structure, the URL must be meaningful. Here, movie, because we want to delete something. Movie, we need to delete a movie. And then in case we need to provide that URL with ID or something. So in our case, we are providing that endpoint with an ID. And then below that, we need to create a function that would be called whenever we go to this URL. And then since we passed the movie ID, we need to pass it here in the function. We need to say movie ID, and the type is integer. And then in the function, we need to delete that movie. So to delete a movie from an array, we need first to access the array. We need to say movies, and then the function that is used to delete something from an array is called pop. And then you need to provide this function with the ID of that movie. I'm going to say here movie ID, and then return. And then you can return with anything. Typically in real APIs, they return with nothing or with success message, with a message here, message, and then movie has been deleted successfully. That's it, pretty simple. Now let's test this. Let me now head on over to the browser first and let me refresh. And now we should have a new URL. As you can see here, we have a new endpoint called movie / movie ID, and the method is delete. In order to use this method, first we need to say try it out, and then we need to provide the name of the movie. Before I provide the name of the movie, let's check which movie we want to delete. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5 movies. Let's delete the last movie. So the last movie has an ID of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's delete 5. I'm going to say here 5, and then I'm going to execute. And as you can see here, it says message movie has been deleted successfully. So how can we verify that the movie has been deleted? Well, we can go back to the movies, and then we can execute this movies, and we check the movies that we have. So now if we check the movies that we now have 1, 2, 3, 4 movies. So the 5th movie is no longer there. The 5th movie has been deleted, so it doesn't exist. So it has been deleted successfully. So this is how you can delete a movie, and this is how you can verify that the movie has been deleted. Welcome back. Now what we need to do is that we need to learn how to create a new movie. So we know how to get a movie by ID, and also how to delete a movie. Now it's time to create a movie. Here, I created these movies obviously here in the script, but we need an endpoint that would allow users and your clients to create new movies and insert new movies to this array. So in order to create a new movie, we need to use a post request, because creating a movie is whenever you are creating a movie, or not a movie, whenever you are creating something in any API, you need to use a post request. So here I'm going to say @app, and then instead of saying get or delete, we need to say post. So the post request is always used whenever you are creating something, whenever you are inserting something new to your API, to your database, or to your array, or whatever data type you are using. Now, here we need to say / and then movie, because we are inserting a single movie. So we need to say / movie. And the post, you need to know that the post request never takes a parameter in its URL. So the post request always consists of a URL without a parameter. And then we can say def, and then let's create a function. I'm going to say create movie, create underscore movie. And then now we need to pass, with this function, we need to pass the movie that we will receive from the user. So I'm going to say here movie. And the type of that movie is going to be a dictionary. Here, a dictionary. We need a dictionary. Therefore, I'm going to say here colon and then dect, which is dictionary. Now, inside this function, we need to insert that movie into the movie. So we need to say movies dot append, and then we need to append the movie. So the append function would insert that piece of data at the end of the array. So this movie will be inserted at the end of the array. And then we need to return, and let's return with all movies. I'm going to say return and then movies. Return with all of the movies that we have. Or you can return with the movie that has just been created by saying movies and then -1. If you pass -1 to the array, this would return the latest element of the array, the last element of the array. Let's now save and test. So let me here click on File, Save All, and let's test. Now let me refresh and let's test. So if you refresh, you will find that we have now a new URL, which is movie, and the type is post. And here it says create movie. So let's use it. Let me here click on try it out, and let's insert something. So here the body request, the request body takes, as you can see, it takes a dictionary. So the dictionary needs two elements, needs two key value pairs. The first key is, let me add here this first. So the first key value pair is the title, because we are inserting the title first and then the year. So we need the title and then we need the year. Let me say, for example, here Batman Begins, and the year obviously is an integer, so I'm going to say 2005, and we are good to go. Now, since this is a dictionary, make sure that the syntax is correct. You just need to click on execute. Let me click on execute and execute here, and as you can see here, it says 200, which is the success status, and here it says response body, which is this response body, which is the movie that we have inserted. If you want to make sure that the movie has been inserted, of course it has been inserted, because it says here successful response. But if you just want to double check that it has inserted, you can get all of the movies. You can here open this your endpoint, which is all of the movies, and then you can here click on try it out and execute, and you should get, at the end, you should get here Batman Begins. I got here Batman Begins twice because I clicked on the execute button twice, so it inserted the movie twice, but it worked successfully. And now we know how to insert a new movie into the array, and this is how you can insert a movie into the array. Welcome back. Now what we need to do is that we need to insert a new movie into the array. And to do that, first we need to check the movies that we have. So let me here check all of the movies. As you can see, we have all of these movies. Suppose that for some reason you want to edit the title or the year. For example, you inserted the year incorrectly and you want to update that year, or even the title. Maybe you have a typo. Maybe you want to fix that for some reason. For example, here we have, let me show you this. We have here Batman Begins. Let's, for example, change the year here. Instead of 2005, let's say 2000, any other year. Let's try this. So to do this, first we need to know the movie ID. So in order to update, we need to know the movie ID, because we cannot update a movie without the ID of that movie. And it's also important to know that whenever we're updating a movie or any resource or any type of data, we also need to get from the user with the ID. Along with the ID, we need to get the new or the piece of data that the user wants to update. So here, this is, let me add here a comment. I'm gonna say here create movie, and here for the update. So for the update movie, for the update, we also need to use the post request. We need to say at app.post, and the URL again is // and then let's say movie. However, the difference between creating a movie and updating a movie is that the response, the request body takes the movie ID. Unlike creating a movie, when we were creating a movie, we didn't know the ID of that movie because that movie wasn't created yet. So it was just about to be inserted. So it had no ID. Unlike here, whenever we are updating a movie, we already know that movie. We already know the ID of that movie, and we can update it. So therefore, we need to provide the movie ID. So here I'm gonna say def, and then I'm gonna say update underscore movie. And we need to pass two things. We need to pass the movie ID, which is integer, and we need to pass the movie itself, the updated data, the data that we want to update. And then we just need to say movies. We need to access the movies array, and then we need to get that movie from the array. So we need to say movies, and then we need to say movie ID, because we want to get that movie and store it in a variable, in any variable. Let's say movie underscore to be updated. So this is the movie to be updated, which is this movie ID. Now we have that movie. Now we want to change the title and or the year of that movie. So we have the movie that we want to update. It doesn't matter which movie it is, but it's only a single movie. So we get that movie, and then we need to access its title and its year, and then we need to update both of them or one of them. So we need to say here movie to be updated, and then dot title, we access the title, and it's gonna be equal to the movie dot title. So the old title will be overridden by the new movie title that has been inserted by the user, that has been provided by the user. Similarly for the year, we need to say movie to be updated dot year is equal to movie dot year. So we access the movie that we already have in the array, and then we access its title, and then we change its title with the title of the movie that the user has provided us. And we do the same with the year. We get the movie to be updated, we get its year, and then we change it. We update it with the year of the movie that the user has provided us. And lastly, we just return that updated movie to the array. So we need to say movies, 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 movie ID, movie ID is going to be equal to the movie to be updated, So this movie to be updated here at this point, at this line, it has been updated successfully. So here we get the movie. Here, let me add a comment. I'm going to say get movie to be updated. And then the second line, we update title. The third line, we update year. And if the year is the same, and or if the title is the same, it's just gonna insert the same data, and it's not gonna be updated. It's just gonna insert the same title and the same year if the user doesn't want to update, for example, the title or the year. And lastly, we here at this point we insert the movie to be updated, which has been updated at this point. We insert it back into the array, because if we don't do so, it will not update that movie in the array. And lastly, we return. We can return with that movie, or we can return with all of the movies. Let's return with the movie that has been updated. I'm going to say movie to be updated. However, since we are dealing with dictionaries, instead of accessing the title and year like this, we need to access the title and year like this, using the square brackets. Here I'm going to say title, and here as well we need to say title, because in Python this is the way of accessing keys of a dictionary. Here as well we need to say year, and then we need to say year. Let me now save, and let's head on over to the browser to test. And you will find that we have a new post request which has an endpoint of movie. However, in order to distinguish between updating and creating a movie, we need to change their names. So here I'm going to say create underscore movie for creating a movie, and for updating a movie I'm going to say update underscore movie. Let me save one more time. Now if I refresh, we should have two distinct endpoints. We have create and update, and both are post requests. However, the difference is that creating a movie doesn't require an ID. Obviously, it doesn't require an ID. Unlike updating a movie, whenever we are updating a movie, we need to know the ID of the movie that we want to update. Let's now update a movie. Let me here click on it, and let me click on try it out, and I'm gonna update movie number 6, and then I'm gonna here say let's update the title. I'm gonna say title. I'm gonna say Batman Begins. I'm not gonna change the title. I'm gonna keep it like this, but we need to provide it. I'm gonna change the year. I'm gonna say year, let's say 2015, for example. Let me click on execute. As you can see, it has been updated successfully, and it returned the movie that we have updated. And if you want to check that, if you want to make sure that it has been updated, you can use the get all. You can use this endpoint and execute this endpoint, and if you execute this, you will get the movie which is the new updated movie. The date is different, so the date has been updated successfully. So now we know how to update a resource or a piece of data that we have in our API. Welcome back. Now what we need to do is that we need to connect to the database and create the database. And in order to connect to the database, we need to open up XAMPP. And in order to open up XAMPP, you need to, if you are using Mac, you need to search for XAMPP, or you need to search in the search here, you need to search for XAMPP here. and you will find a folder called XAMPP, or you will find it among your applications. If you open up your applications, you should find XAMPP here. As you can see, you'll find a folder called XAMPP. That's XAMPP. If you click on it, you'll find that you have here a, an icon or a file or a program called Manager OSX. This is the XAMPP. You need to click on it, and this is gonna open up this window, which is XAMPP. In Windows, if you are using Windows, you need also to search for XAMPP, and you will find it among your application. Typically in Windows, it's called XAMPP control panel. You will find a program called XAMPP control panel or XAMPP, something like this. Anyways, whenever you upload XAMPP, whenever you download XAMPP and install it, you will find it in your PC. And it's very simple to find it. You will be able to find it. Just search for XAMPP control panel or just XAMPP, and you will find it. And once you find it, just open it, and once you open it, it will open up a window like this, which is XAMPP. Here, XAMPP. So in XAMPP, what you need to do is that you need to click on Manage Servers, and in your Manage Servers, you need to start the MySql server, MySql database, as well as the Apache web server. First, click on Apache web server, select it, and then click on Start. And this is gonna take like 10 seconds to start. And then once this is running, once here it says running, you need to select MySql, and then you need to click on Start. So this is also gonna take like 10 seconds to start. And once this is running, once Apache web server and MySql database both running, you need to head on over to the browser, and in the browser you need to type in the browser localhost, and then /-board. That's localhost /board, and then hit enter. Once you hit enter, you will be taken to the Apache web server web page. You need to click on PHP My Admin, and now we can control our databases and we can create a database. Now let's create a database. So to create the database, you need to click here databases, and then you need to type the name of the database. Here I'm gonna name my database Python. I'm just gonna say Python, and then I'm gonna click on create. Once you click on create, this will create a database here. It's called Python. So the database has been created successfully. So now, as you can see, the database has been created. Make sure that the database here is listed among your databases. And then now what we need to do is that we need to create the first table. Here, if you select the Python database, it's going to say here, no tables found in database. That's because we don't have any tables yet. So let's create a table. In order to create a table, you need to select the database, and then you need to type the name of the table. So the name of the table in my project, I'm going to name it movies, because this is obviously a movies table. And then we need, for this table, we need 3 columns. We need a column for the ID of the movie, we need a column for the title, and we need a column for the year. And we can also add another column for something else, such as the description, maybe the storyline. Let's say the storyline. So let's say 4. I'm going to say 4. And then I'm going to click on Go. Now, for this, we need to fill this table up with the columns that we want. So the first column is the ID. The ID here, we need to say ID because each movie must have an ID. The ID, the type is integer. The length, I'm going to say 11. The default, we need to keep it none here. The AI, the auto increment, must be checked. You need to check this. And here, make sure that it says here primary. This is very, very important. The ID must be the primary key. Now let's move on to the second column. The second column is the title. I'm going to say title. The title is going to be varchar, and the value will be, let's say, 255. And that's it. Next, we need to specify the year. We need to say year for the year column. And for the year, it can be integer, it can be date, it can be text. But instead of using date, if you use date, you would have to provide the complete date. And I don't want to provide a complete date. Instead, I just want the year, which is 4 digits. Therefore, I'm going to say text. You can just simply say text because there is no need to provide the complete date, because most movies don't specify, don't say the complete day, the exact day and month. They just provide the year. Therefore, I'm going to say here text. The last column is the storyline, and the storyline is going to be text because the storyline is going to be longer than the title. So therefore, I'm going to say text. And lastly, once you are done, you need to click on save. However, before I click on save, the storyline can be null. Here I'm going to say null because sometimes you might not want to provide a storyline. The storyline is just an additional field. The most important things are the title and the year. The storyline is just an extra field that sometimes you might want to provide it, and sometimes you might want to keep it empty. Therefore, you can say here null. And once you are done, click on save. And if you click on save, you'll find that a new table has been created and it has these 4 columns. And make sure before you do anything, you need to make sure that everything is correct. Make sure that the ID here, there is a key being displayed next to the ID, and make sure that it's auto increment. The title, make sure that it's varchar 255. The year, make sure it's text. The storyline, make sure it's text. And make sure that the storyline is null. Here the default value is null. And make sure that the null here is yes for the storyline. And now we have a table called movies. Welcome back. Now what we need to do is that we need to install MySql connector. And why would we want to install MySql connector? Well, MySql connector is going to allow us to connect to MySql database and start building our API. So the first step is that you need to open up a fresh terminal. If you are using Mac, you need to open up the terminal. You can search for a terminal, which is this, and then you can open up that terminal. If you are using Windows, you need to open what's called CMD. Just search for CMD and you will be able to open that CMD, which is also known as the command prompt. And then in that terminal or command prompt, you need to type the following command. You need to say pip and then install and then MySql hyphen connector and then hyphen Python. And if you are using Python 3, and you should be using Python 3, then you need to say pip3 and then install MySql hyphen connector hyphen Python and then hit enter. And this is gonna start installing MySql connector. And if it's already installed, it's gonna say here requirement already satisfied because I have already installed MySql connector. And if this doesn't work for you for some reason, just remove this 3 and just say pip without 3. Just say pip install MySql connector Python. This in case Python 3 doesn't work, you need to say pip install MySql connector. But if you have installed Python 3 correctly, this command pip3 install MySql connector will work for you. Welcome back. Now what we need to do is that we need to connect to the database. We need to connect to MySql database. And the first step is that you need to open up XAMPP and then you need to start MySQL database and Apache web server. So this is the first step. You need to open up XAMPP, and then you need to click on manage server or servers, and then start the Apache web server and then MySQL database. And then you need to open up the localhost phpMyAdmin, go to localhost phpMyAdmin, and this is the first step. The second step is that now we need to connect to MySQL database using Python. So I'm going to open up my project, and then in the project, the first step that we need to do is that we need to import MySQL connector. So at the top of the script, you need to say at the top import, and then MySQL dot connector. So this is the first step. This is the second step. The third step is that we need to connect to the database. So in order to connect to the database, we need to use MySQL connector. So I'm going to say, I'm going to create a variable called my database is equal to MySQL connector, and then I'm going to call a function called connect. MySQL dot connector dot connect, and then the connect function takes 4 parameters. The first parameter is the host. So how can we get the credentials? How can we get the database credentials? Well, you need to open up localhost phpMyAdmin, and then you need to click on user accounts, and then in the user accounts you will find so many credentials. The one that I'm going to be using is this one because it's the easiest one, the last one. So the username is root, the host name is localhost, the password is nothing, and the global privileges is all privileges. And the database name is, remember the database that we created is called Python. So let's use these credentials. So in the code, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to pass these 4 parameters. The first parameter is the host. So we need to say host is equal to, and then double quotes, and then local host, and then comma, and then the second parameter is the username. So the username is root. So we need to say here user is equal to root. The third parameter is the password. So we need to say password is equal to, and the password is nothing. There is no password. So we need to say double quotes, empty double quotes, and then comma, and then the last parameter is the database. So the database was named Python. So we need to say database is equal to, and then Python. That's it. Now we can connect to the database using this my database, and this is crucial. You need to get this right, because if you get this wrong, it is not going to work, because this is crucial in our application, and this is going to allow us to continue, and this is going to allow us to connect to the database and do all sorts of things with our database. Welcome back. Now what we need to do is that we need to connect to the database and get all movies from the database, because this is the first this one is the first route that we have, which is get movies, get all. So in order to get movies, the first step is that we need to use what's called a cursor, because the MySQL connector uses what's called a cursor in order to go back and forth between in the database. If you open up the movies table, Python movies table, in case we have movies, currently I don't have any movies, but if we have many movies, this MySQL connector, in order to get data, in order to get movies from the database, it's gonna need to use what's called a cursor, and a cursor is going to allow it to go back and forth and get and fetch data from or pull out data from the database. So we need to create a cursor. We need to create a new variable called myCursor. Cursor is equal to myDatabase dot cursor. So this function is going to create a cursor, and this myCursor is going to be used throughout the application to get and do anything with the database. So this is the first step, which is creating cursor. The second step is that now in any function we can use this cursor to execute anything we want and do all sorts of operations with the database. So the first thing that we need to do is that we need to get movies, and to get movies we need to use the cursor. So here I'm gonna say my cursor, and I can use this my cursor. However, before using this cursor we need to use MySql. So here we need to create an SQL command that's gonna get all movies from the database. However, we don't have any movies in the database, so let's insert a few movies. So let me insert a few movies here. I'm gonna click on insert. So I'm gonna here insert the first movie. I'm gonna say Joker, and then the year, let's say 2022 for example, and then storyline, I'm gonna keep it empty for now, and then I'm gonna click on go, and this is gonna insert the first movie. Let's insert another a couple other movies. So here I'm gonna say Batman ends. Let me insert another movie. Let me zoom in so that you see here. So here I'm gonna insert I'm gonna insert a few movies, and after that let me click on go, and let me insert another one before I move on, and let's insert this one as well. So I'm trying to get everything correct because I don't want to insert fake names here. It's important to insert real names and real dates because it's gonna help you a lot in terms of learning. Let me click on go, and now I think we have now 4 movies. So if you click on browse, we have here 4 movies. So let's continue now. Now what I'm gonna do is that in order to get the movies we need to use SQL, and the SQL command to get movies is select all from, and then the name of the table. So here I'm gonna create a variable called SQL, and then is equal to, and by the way this is not Python, this is SQL. So don't worry if you don't understand this, I'm gonna explain this. This is called SQL language, and it's, by the way, it's very, very simple. It's like English. It's like if you are reading or writing English. So here we need to say, in order to get everything, we need to say select, and then all. In order to get everything, we use asterisk. So we need to say select all from, and then the name of the table. So what is the name of the table? The name of the table is movies. As you can see, the command is even written here. Select all from movies. So here I'm gonna say select all from movies. So this is the SQL command. Then we need to execute this command. And to execute this command, we need to use the cursor. I'm going to say my cursor and then dot execute, and then this execute function takes the SQL command that you want to execute. So I'm going to pass here the SQL command, and that's it. Now what we want to do is that after we execute this, we want to use the cursor to get everything from the that has been returned. So I'm going to say my cursor dot fetch all. Fetch all is a function that would return everything that has been returned by the cursor. So this is going to return everything, and then we can store it in a variable called movies. I'm going to say movies is equal to my cursor dot fetch all, and then I'm going to return the movies. Let me now click on file and then save all, and let's test. Now in order to test, we need to open up the local host. Make sure that the local host is up and running. So here, as you can see, my local host is up and running. Of course, I have taught you how to do this. Again, if you want to run the server, the local host, you need to use the Uvicorn main app, main colon app, and then reload hyphen reload, and this is gonna start your server, which is 127.0.0.1.8000. Now you need to go to 127.0.0.1 colon 8000 and then / docs. Now let me refresh this and let's test. So what we want to test is that we want to test the movies. I'm gonna click on movies, and this now should return if I click on execute or try it out and then execute. As you can see, this is gonna return all of the movies. So the movies that will be returned should be the movies that we have in the database. So what are the movies that we have in the database? We have Ice Age and Lion King. Let's try that. Let's test this. So let's verify this. Here, the movies that have been returned are Joker, Batman Begins, Ice Age, and Lion King. So this is correct. So I also want you to pay attention to the type of data that has been returned. The type of data that has been returned is an array. It's an array of arrays. So it's a big contains small arrays, where each single array represents a movie. So for example, Joker is an array or a list. In Python, it's called a list. So we have here Joker, we have Batman Begins, etc. And each single one is stored in a list. Welcome back. Now what we need to do is that we need to get a movie by ID from the database. And the good news is that now the IDs we aren't going to rely on the IDs of the array, because now in the database the situation is different. In the database, each single movie will have an ID that is given by the database automatically. So it doesn't matter where that element or that movie exists in the array that will be returned. It doesn't matter, because each movie will have a unique ID, whether that be 100, 1000, 99, it doesn't matter, because by using that ID we can get that specific movie, rather than using a random ID and because if we are relying on the array or list index, we would have to just pass a random ID to get a random movie, and we don't want that. Instead, by using the database, we will be able to get a certain movie by using its ID. Because as you can see, if we return all of the movies, each single movie will have a unique ID. For example, Joker has 1, Batman has 2, Ice Age has 3. It doesn't matter that ID, but if we use that ID, we can get that movie. So now let's use this endpoint that we already have to get that specific movie. So now what we need to do is that we need to follow the same procedure or steps that we already have followed in the first endpoint. Here we need to create an SQL command. We need to say SQL is equal to, and then we need to say select. Now instead of saying select, instead of saying select all, we need to say select all, but we need to specify the movie ID. So we need to say select all from movies. However, now we need to add a condition, and the condition is gonna be the movie ID. So we need to say select all from movies where ID is equal to, and then percentage S, and that's it. Now this percentage S represents a blank, and we need to fill this blank with the movie ID. So in a new line, what I'm gonna do in a new line is that I'm gonna create a variable. I'm gonna say I'm gonna create a variable called val, which is gonna be equal to a tuple. It's also called a tuple in Python. And then I'm gonna pass the movie ID. I'm gonna say movie ID and then comma. So this is the syntax. This is the correct syntax. And this is going to be, now we can use this to fill this blank, which is the movie ID. So in a new line, we need to say my cursor, and then execute. And then what we want to execute is that we want to execute the SQL command. However, we need to fill the blank. To fill the blank, we need to pass the val. So this execute function takes two parameters. The first parameter is the SQL, and the second parameter is the piece of data that we want to fill the command with. So the command has only one blank, which is the this S, percentage S, and we need to fill it with the movie ID, which is the value. And that's it. Now, after this, we need to execute this. We need to, after we execute this, we need to get the result. To get the result, we need to say my cursor dot fetch all, and we need to store this in a variable called movie. So movie is going to be equal to my cursor fetch all, and finally we return that movie. However, the fetch all returns, this fetch all returns an array of arrays. So we need to get only the only element, and the only element has an index of 0. So we can say return movie of 0, which is going to return the only element of this array. Now let me save and test. I'm going to click on save all. Let me head on over to the browser to test. In the browser now, let me refresh. Let me click on movie ID, and now let me click on try it out, and let's use a movie ID. Let's pass a movie ID. So for example, if we want to get Ice Age, we would have to pass 3. Let me say here 3. If I click on execute, as you can see, what I'm gonna get is that I'm gonna get Ice Age 2014, Ice Age animals seeking new adventures. So it's working perfectly. Welcome back. Now what we need to do is that we need to work on creating a movie. So we already have this endpoint. Let me uncomment this endpoint, which creates a resource. Here in our case, we create a movie. However, this time we need to create a movie and insert it into our database. So what we want to do is that we want to use SQL here in this endpoint in order to insert a new movie into our database. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to here, as we learned earlier how to use SQL here, we need to say in this create movie endpoint or function, we need to say SQL is equal to, and then the SQL command that inserts something into the database. In our case, it's a movie. It's insert into, and then the name of the table is movies. Insert into movies. And then what do we want to insert? We want to insert, let me show you what we want to insert. What we want to insert is that we want to insert for every single movie, we want to insert the title, the year, and the storyline. The ID will be given by the database, so you don't have to worry about the ID. So here I'm going to say title, and then comma, and then year, and then comma, and then storyline. And then we need to append the values. So we need to say values. What are the values? The values here, we need to add blanks so that we can fill these blanks later. So I'm going to say here percentage and then S, and then comma, and then percentage S, and then comma, and then percentage S. Because we need 3 blanks. We need a blank for the title, we need another blank for the year, and we need another and third and final blank for the storyline. Now we need to get these values. We need to get the title, the year, the storyline from the user. So in a new line, I'm gonna say val is equal to, and then I'm gonna say here in a tuple, I'm gonna get the movie, which is this, which is obviously a dictionary. So we need to say here movie, and then what we want to access from that dictionary, we want to access first the title, and then comma here, and then movie, and then we want to access the year, and then comma, and then we want to access the storyline. And finally, we need to append these values to the SQL. So we need to say mycursor dot execute, and then we want to pass the SQL and the val. And then we finally we say here we don't need this anymore. We need to remove this line. And then after we execute, we need to use a very important function. Unlike getting something from the database, we need to call a function called commit. We need to say my database dot commit. So this function, if you don't call this function, data wouldn't be inserted into the database. This is very, very important. The commit function is required whenever you are altering something in the database. It's so important. Finally, we need to return that movie that has been inserted. So I'm going to say movie. I'm going to return the movie. That's it. Let me now click on File and then Save All. And let's test. So now I'm going to refresh. And then we should have a new URL. So as you can see, we have a new URL called create movie. Let me click on it. And let me here click on try it out. And let's insert a new movie. So here, I'm going to say, first we need the title. So I'm going to say title. And then let me insert here a new movie. Let's say here Rio. And then here. And then storyline. Then all we need to do is that we need to click on execute and see what's gonna happen. So let me click on execute. And as you can see here, it says 200 success. And here the movie has been returned. Now, in order to verify that, you can do two things. You can either open up the database and refresh your table. Let me click on the table. So the table will be refreshed. And as you can see, a new movie has been inserted. And you can also get all of the movies now here by using the movies. Of course, you are going to get the movie that has just been inserted. If you click on try it out and then execute, as you can see, you will get the movie here, Rio, which has been inserted, which is the latest movie that has been or the last movie that has been inserted into the database. Welcome back. Now what we need to do is that we need to update a movie. And as you can see, we already have a URL that, or an endpoint that does this. So I'm going to uncomment this code. However, this time we aren't going to update the movie in the front end. And instead, this time we are going to be updating a movie in the database, which means that it's a real API. So now the difference is that we need to use SQL here. So the code is going to be the same except for getting the movie from the user and then inserting and then updating the movie that already exists in the database. So here what we need to do is that, as usual, the first step is that we need to access the database. So we need here we need to get the movie. We need to first to create our SQL. We need to say SQL and then the SQL command. So the SQL command that's used to update something, in our case it's a movie, is update, and then what do we want to update? We want to update movies, and then the values that we want to update. So I'm going to say update movies, set, what do we want to update? We want to update the title, and then is equal to, and then percentage %s, because we want to add a blank here. And then we also need to update, we need to say comma, and then we need to update the year. So I'm going to say year is equal to percentage %s, and then comma, and then story line, and then is equal to, and then percentage %s. And then what's important now is that we need to add a condition, because we need to update a single movie, a specific movie. So we have to say where ID is equal to percentage %s. We need another blank. Now what we want to do is that we want to get the movie from the user. So here we need to say val is equal to, and then tuple, and then movie, and then the first thing that we need to append is the title. So we need to say movie title, and then comma, and then we need to update the movie year, and then comma, and then movie storyline. And finally, we need to say comma, and then movie ID. The movie ID is a single value, so we just need to say movie ID. We just need to say here movie ID. And that's it. Now, after we do this, we have to say movie. We have to say my cursor, and then execute, and then we need to execute the SQL with the value, so that we append the value or values to the SQL. And finally, since we are changing something, we are altering something, we have to call the commit function. So I'm going to say my database dot commit, and we can say return, and we return the movie that has been updated, which is the movie. And we don't need any of this code, so I'm going to remove all of this code. We don't need this code anymore. Let me click now on file and then save all, and let's head on over to the browser to test. So now in the browser we have to refresh. As you can see, we will have a new URL, update movie. Now with this URL we need to click on try it out, and then we need to provide two things. We need to provide the ID. So the movie that I want to update, let's say Rio, the last movie, which has an ID of 101. So I'm going to say here 101. And then we need to pass or insert the new data. So first, the title. So if you don't want to edit or change the title, you just need to pass the old title. So the old title is gonna be the same. However, I'm gonna change the year. I'm gonna say year. I'm gonna say year. And then I'm gonna change this to, let's say, 2025, just for the sake of testing. And then storyline, I'm gonna say storyline. Awesome movie, just for the sake of testing again. Now if I click on execute, guess what? If I click on execute, it says here 200 and here the new data. Let's verify that the movie has been updated. Now in the database, let me refresh the movies table, and as you can see, the new data has been inserted, or the data has been updated, I should say. So here this movie now has a year of 2025. The storyline says here awesome movie. So it has been updated successfully. Welcome back. Now, whenever we are updating a movie, it's better to pass the movie ID with the dictionary that we already have. Instead of passing two different type of data, we can pass the ID with the dictionary, and it's actually a better practice. So this way, this is not wrong, but it's better to say here. It's better to say movie dictionary and then get the ID from the dictionary. So here we need to say movie and then ID, because now we are dealing with a dictionary and we can use that dictionary to insert the ID in the dictionary, and then we can fetch that ID from the dictionary. So there is no need to pass two different parameters. So the user now would have to pass title, year, storyline, and ID exactly as if the user was creating a movie. But the only difference is that in creating a movie, we don't pass an ID. We pass the title, we supply the title, the user supplies the title, the year, and the storyline. However, in updating a movie, we supply the endpoint with title, with the year, and storyline, and the ID as well. So let's now test. Let me save and test. Now let me here refresh. Now, instead of passing, let me show you this. Now, instead of passing here this update movie, if you click on try it out, you will not have two different types of data. Instead, you will have only one type, which is the dictionary. Now, in the dictionary, we need to supply the dictionary with four parameters. We need the ID, the title, the year, and the storyline. So let's edit, for example, the Ice Age here. I'm going to say ID. The ID is 90, and then, by the way, here I should say ID, and then title. So the title is gonna be Ice Age, and then year. So I'm gonna change the year. Again, I'm gonna say 2025, and then finally we have the story line. I'm gonna say new or updated movie, just for the sake of testing. Now let me click on execute, and if I click on execute, as you can see here, it's gonna return the movie. Now in the database we should have the updated data. Let me refresh, and as you can see, the movie has been updated. Now we have the Ice Age and the year is 2025. The storyline is updated movie. So this is how you can, instead of passing two different types of data, you can pass only one type, and then you can use that to update the movie. Welcome back. Now what we need to do is that we need to delete a movie from the database. So remember, we already have here an endpoint, and this endpoint deletes a movie from an array. However, now we need to delete that movie from the database. So the difference here is that now we are using a true API which connects to the database, and now we can delete a movie from the database. So the first step here is that we need to use SQL. Here I'm going to say SQL, and then it's going to be equal to, and then the SQL command. So the SQL command that deletes something from the database, in our case it's a movie, is delete, and then what we want to delete is that we want to delete from movies, where, and then ID. We need to specify the movie ID. I'm going to say ID is equal to %s. So we need to append, I'm going to say val, we need to append the movie ID. I'm going to say val is equal to, and then tuple, and then the movie ID. So we need the movie ID, and then comma. Don't forget the comma. And finally, we need to execute this. So we need to say mycursor dot execute, and what we want to execute is that we want to execute the SQL with the value. And we no longer need this pop. I'm going to remove this pop function. And we need to return here a message that says movie has been deleted successfully. Let's now test. Let me here click on file and then save all. However, if you say this, it's not gonna work. Why? Because as I told you, whenever you are altering or deleting or updating or creating something, you have to call the commit function. So here we need to say my database dot commit. So this, without this, it's not gonna work. So this is super important. This function is important. Now let's save one more time and let's test. Now let me head on over to the browser and let me refresh, and let's delete a movie. So as you can see in the database, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5 movies. Let's delete the latest movie, the last movie, which is Rio, and it has an ID of 101. So what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna here click on try it out, and then I'm gonna pass the movie ID, which is 101, and then I'm gonna click on execute. And as you can see, I'm gonna get a message that says movie has been deleted successfully. So now you have two ways to verify that the movie has been deleted. Either you can go to the database and refresh the database, and you will find that now we don't have the last movie anymore. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 rather than 5 movies. Also, you can get all of the movies and check that. You can here say movies and then click on try it out and then execute, and you will find that the last movie doesn't exist. Also, you can use the get movie by ID, and you can pass the movie ID. So if I say 101, which is the ID of the movie that has been deleted, and if I click on execute, now you are gonna get an error here, internal server error, because the movie doesn't exist. So this is how you can delete a resource, in our case a movie, from the database using the delete method of this endpoint. Welcome back. Now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to introduce you to one of the most important aspects of the FastAPI framework, and that is called Pydantic. So what is Pydantic? Pydantic is just a form of data that would allow you to create models easier. We already used, if you recall, we already used dictionaries. Python's native data type, which is the dictionaries here, and here, many times. However, this is not always useful. Sometimes you might want to create a specific model, and that can be done using Pydantic. So the first step, in order to use Pydantic, you need to install it. If you don't have it, you need to open a new terminal, and then in the terminal you need to use pip to install it. So you need to say pip 3 or pip if you are using if you are installed pip if you added pip to your path using pip or pip 3, and then install and then Pydantic, and then hit enter. You need to type this, and then you need to hit enter, and this is gonna start installing Pydantic. Since I already installed it, it's gonna say here requirements that's already satisfied, because I have already installed it. So this is the first step. The second step is that we need to import Pydantic. We need to say here from Pydantic import base model. So Pydantic would allow you to use the base model to create models. So let's use this base model to create a model. So here I'm gonna create a model called movie. I'm gonna say here class movie, or alternatively I'll better to create a new file here, new file, and then in this file we can say class, but of course we need first to import. We need to say from Pydantic import base model, and we need to save this as movie. We need to say movie.py. Now we need to create a class called movie, and this class is going to extend the base model. I'm going to say base model. Now we can specify the attributes or the member variables of this class. So here we can say, for example, for every single movie we want a title. So we can say here title, and that title is going to be a string. We also need a year. We can say year, and the year is going to be integer. We also need a storyline. I'm going to say storyline, and that storyline is going to be string. And that's it. Now we can save this, save all or save, and we can use this movie model in the main file. So here in the main, we need to import this movie. We can here say, and to do this, we need to say from movie import movie. From this movie file, we need to import this movie class. So now whenever we want to create a movie, instead of using a dictionary, I'm gonna say movie. I'm gonna be using the movie class. And instead of using the dictionary to access the attributes, these other attributes, I'm gonna be using the movie object. So I'm gonna say movie dot title, and then movie dot year, and then movie dot storyline, because now we are dealing with a class and object. Let me now click on file and then save all, and let's head on over to the browser to test. Now let me refresh here, and let me create a new movie. I'm gonna click on try it out, and as you can see, the difference is that now you will be given this this dictionary. It's not a dictionary actually, it's an object. You are getting this because FastAPI recognizes this file. It recognizes the base model. This is the power of using this base model. Your users, your customers will not need to guess the attributes. They just click on this if you are using this docs, and then they just need to type here fill out this object. So the title, let's create a new movie. I'm gonna say new Batman movie, and then I'm gonna here say specify the year. I'm gonna say 2025. The storyline, I'm gonna say new Batman, or let's say Batman fights for justice. And let me click now on execute. If I click on execute, now as you can see, I'm gonna get here a response 200, which is successful, and the title is new Batman movie and Batman fights for justice. You can verify this if you refresh your database. As you can see, a new movie has been inserted. So it works successfully, and don't worry about this I think I clicked on the button twice. This is why I got the movie inserted twice into the database. But this is how you can insert a new movie, and this time we are using the model, and this is super important and super powerful. You don't have to use a dictionary anymore. Dictionaries are awesome, but with FastAPI, using a model and using the base model and Pydantic is far more important. Welcome back. Remember when we created the movies table, we said that the storyline is optional. The storyline can be null, which means that it's not mandatory. The user doesn't have to provide a storyline. Therefore, here in our application, in the movie, these three attributes are mandatory. And this is not a good practice because in real APIs, some parameters are optional. Therefore, we need to specify which parameters are optional. And in our case, the storyline is optional. So how can we tell this model, hey model, we want you to consider the storyline as an optional attribute. How can we do this? To do this, we need to say from typing import optional. This object is going to allow us to specify which attributes are optional. So the storyline, I'm going to say optional, and then we need to say square brackets and then string. So it's an optional string, and the value is just none. In case we don't have a value for it, in case the user doesn't provide a value, the default value is none. So again, let me explain this. This model will have a title, year, and storyline. The title is mandatory and it's a string. The year is mandatory and it's integer. The storyline is optional and it's string, and the default value is none. Now let me save, and now let's use this in case of creating a movie. Also, in case we are updating a movie, we need to say here movie because now we are using the model instead of the dictionary. And here we also need to say movie dot title and also movie dot year and also movie dot story line. And this also introduces us to an important point, which is the ID. So we need to say the ID here, this ID, we need to provide again the ID because we don't want to create here an ID attribute because we don't want to mess with the model. Instead, we want to separate the ID because only in case of updating a movie, we need to have an ID. So I'm going to say ID, and the ID is going to be integer. I'm going to say integer. And now we are going to go back to the other method, which is separating the ID from the model. So I'm going to say here movie.storyline, movie.storyline, and then finally we need to pass the ID. It's better to say movie ID. I'm going to say movie underscore ID. And here I'm going to say movie underscore ID. Let me now save and test. So I'm going to head on over to the browser. And in the browser now, let me refresh. And let's create a new movie and also update a movie. So I'm going to first create a new movie. And as you can see here, we have three attributes. Now, if you supply only the title, if you say title, only title, and say, for example, Batman, you are going to get an error. Let me click on execute. If you execute, you are going to get a error on unprocessable entity because the year is mandatory. The year is not optional. Therefore, we need to reset and we need to start over. And now if we create a new movie, if we say, for example, Batman 2025 and then the year, let's say 2025. Now if I remove the storyline completely, or even if I keep it empty, and if I click on execute, there will be no problems. As you can see, this will be executed, and if you check your database, you will find that the movie has been inserted without any problems, because the storyline is not mandatory. The storyline is optional. Also, in case of updating a movie, let's update a movie. I'm gonna click on update. Now we need to click on try it out, and then we need to pass the movie ID. So the movie ID that I want to update is movie number 105. I'm gonna say 105, and the title is gonna be, let's say, Batman 2023, and then the year I'm gonna say 2023. And the storyline, again, I'm gonna keep it empty. I'm gonna remove this, and I'm gonna click on execute, and as you can see, you are gonna get the response. You can verify also by using this endpoint. If you click on try it out and execute, we should get the updated movie. So at the end of the array, we have an updated movie, 105 Batman 2023, and the year is 2023. So this is how you can use Pydantic, and this is also how to add optional parameters. Not all parameters are mandatory, and this is an important concept in APIs. Welcome back. Getting a movie by ID is not always useful, because sometimes you might want to get a movie by its title, and most users wouldn't know the movie ID unless they are working in a project and they know how to get all of the movies and all of these things. However, a normal user would typically search for a movie by its title, not its ID. Therefore, we need to learn how to get a movie by its title rather than its ID. So how can we do this? Well, the process actually is pretty simple. The only difference between getting a movie by ID and getting a movie by title is that we just need to supply the endpoint with a title, with a movie title. So remember here we have here this endpoint get single movie by ID. This is gonna get a single movie by ID. However, we need to create another one that would return or get a movie by its title. So I'm gonna create a new endpoint. I'm gonna say app, and then .get, and then movie, and / and then we need to say movie title, movie underscore title. And then we need to create a function that would get movie. I'm gonna say get movie by title. And this function is gonna take the movie title as a parameter. We need to say here movie title, and it's gonna be a string. I'm gonna say str. Now we need to make an SQL query that would get to the database and pull out the movie by its ID, or get all movies that have that title, not ID, by title. So we need to say SQL, and then is equal to select all from movies where title is equal to, and then %s, and then val is equal to movie title, and then comma movie title, and then comma, and then we need to execute this. So I'm gonna say my cursor dot execute SQL and the value. Finally, we need to get that movie by using the fetch all. I'm gonna say movie is equal to my cursor dot fetch all, and then we get that movie by pulling that movie out of the array that will be returned. I'm gonna say return movie 0. Finally, we need to do a very important thing, which is we need to change the URL, because we already have a URL that here we have already another URL with the same method, which is get and here get, and both here have the same endpoint, and this is going to prevent us from getting the movie by title. This is gonna create an error. Therefore, we need to change the endpoint for one of them. So the endpoint must be unique. Here I'm gonna say movie underscore by title. I'm gonna say movie by title. Let me now click on file and then save all, and let's test. Now let me refresh, and we should have now a new endpoint. As you can see, we have a new endpoint called movie by title, and the method is get, and it takes the movie title. Let's now search for a movie by title. I'm gonna click on try it out. Let me here say, for example, we have let's say Lion King. So I'm gonna say Lion King. Let me click on execute, and as you can see, you will get the movie here, the movie ID, the year, the name, and the storyline is empty. And in case the movie doesn't exist, for example, if you say here something like, let's say here we have these movies. Which movie we don't have? Let's say for example Batman 20 2035, which doesn't exist. I'm gonna click on execute, and as you can see, you will get internal server error, and here it says 500, which is in case the movie doesn't exist. Welcome back. Now what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna talk about a very important topic when it comes to developing APIs, which is handling errors. Whenever you are building an API, it's important to handle errors, because your endpoints will not always return data, will not always return what the user is hoping for. Therefore, whenever you have an error, it's better to customize that error, and return a specific message with a specific information to let the user know what happened. And this is useful in many cases. And in our case, we have here get movie by title. For example, whenever the user is trying to get a movie, and if that movie doesn't exist, it's super important to let the user know that this movie doesn't exist, rather than returning nothing. For example, if I say here, let me refresh and show you an example. If I say here, if I search for a movie that doesn't exist, for example, here any characters, and if I click on execute, this is obviously going to return internal server error, and it's going to return 500. If the user is a developer, they will probably understand that this movie doesn't exist. However, if the user is not a tech savvy, if the user is not a developer, they will not understand what that means. Therefore, it's better to return a message that lets the user know what happened, and that can be done using error handling techniques. So let's do this in our application now. What I'm going to do is that I'm going to import a FastAPI class called HTTP exception. This HTTP exception this HTTP exception is going to allow us to return a specific piece of data or message to the user in case something undesirable happen. So here, in case we are returning a movie title, if that movie doesn't exist, we need to let the user know that this movie doesn't exist, and they should search for another movie. So here what we can do is that we can say if length movie is equal to 0, then we can return a customized message, because here this movie is gonna return an array. This returns an array with the with the result. So in this example, we are returning an array of a single array, and we are here fetching that single element from that array. But in case the length movie is equal to 0, in other words, in case that array is empty, it means that the movie doesn't exist. And to handle this, we can say raise HTTP exception, and then this HTTP exception takes two parameters. The first parameter is the status code, and that status code can be anything. It can be, of course, not. It shouldn't be 200 because 200 it means success, and typically it's 500 in case this doesn't, in case something error happens, or 400, sometimes 400. There is a list of status codes, and the 200 usually means, and always 200 always means success. 300 means redirect. 400 means some type of error. 500 means internal server error. I'm gonna be using 500 for the sake of simplicity. And then the second parameter is the details, and then is equal to, and then the message. Here detail, and then the error message. Here our error message is movie not found. Very simple. Movie not found. And you can repeat this technique with any endpoint you want. For example, in case with the movie ID, you can do the same. You can repeat this code because the handling error is gonna be similar. And this raise HTTP exception is gonna be executed, and no further code will be executed. So we don't have to worry about anything else. Let me now save and test. Let me click on File, Save All, and test. Now let's search, let me refresh, and let's search for a movie that doesn't exist. So let me here refresh, and here I should say raise. Here should say raise. So I have a spelling error. I should say raise. Let me refresh one more time, and let's search for a movie that doesn't exist. Now if I here say, let's just type a random string, and let me click on execute. And as you can see now, what I'm gonna get is that I'm gonna get detail movie not found rather than the internal server error that I got earlier. So this is how you can handle errors very simply using the HTTP exception class. And again, there is no specific way of doing this. It depends upon your code, your structure, your algorithm. So here in our case, we are returning an array. Therefore, we need to check whether this array is empty or not. In other cases, you might be returning a string. So in case you are returning a string, you might need to check whether that string is empty or not. So it depends upon how you are and the way you are typing your code. But in all circumstances, in case there is an error, you can always use this piece of code, raise exception, HTTP exception, and then the status code that you want. Typically it's 500 or 400. It depends upon the whether it's internal server error or client error. And the detail is the message that you want to let the user know, or the message that you want to return to the user.